I told, once I told David, the chase driver, or no, it was Jody, she said, well, you're not, look at the room, you don't have any room, so well, I'm gonna put you in the back of the truck, and we're gonna drive through the city, and after we get out of the city, you can get back on the road. So, and she did about 1.5 miles. So, instead of 570 miles, I'll go 568.5.
Well, just retrace yourself a couple of miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it makes up for a couple detours that I made.
Yeah, absolutely. So how's the bike holding up? You know, Joe's trying to get your bike company. Is it Trex? Is that the name of the bike you're riding?
Yeah.
Have they contacted you?
No, but you know, I decided, Dennis, that you made an offer to me that if I decided to ride back on a bike, you would buy the bike. So I want a Harley.
No, I said that we were going to buy you food for your walk
Oh,
back.
okay. Well, yeah, you guys have done a good job doing that. When we got to the restaurant, it was a great meal, and it was wonderful. The owner of the place, Rick, was real nice about it. Problem was getting there because I had hit my GPS, and we're going through like all kinds of side streets and alleyways, and I go, what the hell is wrong with this GPS? And I realized that I didn't take it off a bike. I kept it on, but it was on bike and not car.
So it's not going to take you through the major highways.
Yeah, and so once I changed it, it was like we were there in 4 minutes.
Okay, so you did make up those 2.5
Yeah, there
miles.
you go.
Yeah, but well, that was the car that was taking us because, or the truck actually, because if I have to go off routes to visit a VFW or backtrack, I'm not going to do it on a bicycle because sometimes I'll pass like the VFW or American Legion Hall in the morning or early afternoon, and there's nobody there until the evening usually. So wherever I leave off, they'll pick me up, we'll throw the bike in the back of the truck, lock it up, and then go back to a couple of VFWs. Now I have to go back on Monday, and we got to get about 4 VFWs that we went by early in the morning when nobody was there. So we're going to stop in, and I think it's having an effect because there's some people that have contacted the headquarters of the VFW and American Legion, and now there's a VFW and American Legion magazine, and they want to do the story. So after we're done, we'll get another story out of it and talk about it. But it's kind of like preaching to the choir because all these guys know. But what I've done is I've pretty much put my fist down on their bar, right, and said, okay, quit your drinking and start making the phone calls. And sure enough, we fired up a couple of them, and I got a cell phone call from the American Legion Post Commander. He said 4 of his legionnaires that were at this one particular VFW hall, or American Legion, I forget, did say they called. So that's pretty nice. We're at least they're.
Allow me to say this, Kerry. Allow me to say this. When you brought this up, you know, I've witnessed a few VFWs here in the area, and it appeared to me that these fellows that gather, once you hear a few stories of theirs, they have a lot to drink about. They have a good reason to want to forget a few things. What I see you doing is giving them a mission that's important enough for them to come out of that protection area that they find and actually do something because they can see that you care. I think that you're giving that to the veterans who have thought there was no other remedy that they could pursue. I think you're giving that to them, Kerry, so thank you for that in their name.
No problem. No problem. And some of these guys, how do I say this without sounding too bad? But in my experience of dealing with fellow veterans, because I pretty much hung out with them all for 30 years. You go to the VFW hall and the guy starts drinking, and he's starting to tell you the story, and you pick up on some things. And one story I remember I heard about 20 years ago, the guy I knew he was, you asked him certain questions and you can tell the difference between an actual combat soldier or a support soldier. The support soldier meaning somebody who's in supply, or they're still doing the job, they're still out there, but they're not looking for the battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like a combat soldier, infantryman or a artilleryman. And this one guy was he was an infantryman in Vietnam, and he was drafted and forced to go, of course. You know, he's doing his duty like his dad did during World War II. And he's nursing with his drinking the memories of a soldier who was moving from one fighting position to another. And when he did that, he got in the line of fire of this soldier, and this soldier killed his own buddy because he wasn't communicating with the soldiers that were laying down fire on the enemy position. So he got up, the soldier that got killed, didn't tell anybody he was moving. He just said he just got up and moved from one position to another. And while he was doing that, he crossed the line of fire of this guy who became quite a problem.
That fellow there probably came home. If he came home, yeah, he did because you talked with him. He has an awful lot of things to have to deal with, so I wouldn't be one who would accuse or blame them for depending on that alcohol that you say they do, because I've seen it also. It helps them get through some of those things when they come to their memory. And I say it's so important that they know we're there. I want them to know that what we do in this caucus every Friday night, and that's why we have been so happy to support you and try to get that message out.
Yep, I appreciate it. And I wanted to tell you another story. The Rolling Thunder interview that I had. Did you guys happen to see that with Jim? And this is a tough thing for Vietnam veterans, because when we came home, like I said in the interview, you couldn't even put Vietnam veteran on your resume because they thought we were all crazy or something. Well, we are different because we experienced combat. But the story is his friend committed suicide about 3 weeks ago, and because they were what we call brown water soldiers, and these are brown water sailors, and these were the guys who ran the kind of like a small PT boat along the rivers in the Mekong Delta and elsewhere in Vietnam, and they were patrolling the rivers for trying to break the what do you want to call it, the enemy from coming down river and hiding arms and ammunition in the sampans and other little boats that traverse the river.
Was it that where John Kerry got his Medal of Honor?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
He got a sliver in his butt when his boat left. He put it in reverse.
Just for the record, I actually met John Kerry in Vietnam. He was there at the same time I was. He was stationed in Long Binh, and he was a writer for the Stars and Stripes. And the reason I remember it is because every soldier has their last name over their pocket.
Uh-huh.
And I was hitchhiking in Long Binh. I was going up to the General Abrams headquarters to talk to some guys in the S2 section. And I was coming to ride, and I got picked up in the back of a 3/4 ton. It's kind of like a pickup truck with a big canvas back and seats in there so you can sit. And here's this guy sitting across from me with the last name over his pocket named Kerry. And that's unusual, right, to have a name like that. So I mentioned it. And wouldn't you know it, years later, John Kerry's now the Secretary of State. It's the same guy in Vietnam. But the story I want to tell is the soldier who committed suicide went into a village where all the kids would come out when you give them, we'd give them like soccer balls and baseballs and things like that, to win the hearts and minds. And then when they came back a week later, all the kids were killed for taking those gifts from the Americans by the North Vietnamese soldiers that came in. In his case, I think it was the Viet Cong came in, and they killed all the children because they were becoming friends with the Americans. And they came up, and when we come home, and I've seen things like this where you go to a village and they had, maybe this is why I'm pro-life, so adamant about being pro-life, is because they had taken the women and they had tied their hands to the beam going across the hut and gave them a cesarean section, but they didn't go any further because they were all pregnant, and they were, it was kind of like an abortion, but they killed not only the woman but the baby, but they let the baby die. It's pretty horrendous things to even think about or contemplate, right? And in this particular case, the soldier who committed suicide couldn't get it out of his head because he felt guilty for giving these kids things like baseballs or the candy that we used to pass out to the kids of what they call mountain yards, or the village people. These are the, back in the woods, deep in the jungle, that kind of thing. Small villages. If you've ever seen the movie The Green Beret with John Wayne, it's that kind of village. You come along the river, and you stop in and you visit. Sometimes you drop off medical supplies or anything to win the hearts and minds and kind of. And the average everyday American is very passionate. You want to, like me, I love kids. Dress up as Santa and you put smiles on their faces, and when mom's smiling, you did a good job, right? So it's kind of a thing where you kind of appreciate the youth and the innocence of these little kids, because when they see you, they got a great big smile because you brought them a present. And in the case of Vietnam, we weren't dressed up as Santa. We were dressed up as United States soldiers or Marines. And we gave them these gifts when we came to their village. And then the next day or the next week, in my case, the Viet Cong has long since disappeared when I got there, but the North Vietnamese soldiers would, they just come in and, the village would be punished for it.
Gary, you've brought
that's
something.
Pretty typical story.
Yeah, you brought something to our attention, and we're going to let you go, but I'm going to tell you what you've done that is coalescing with what my message has been. We can't continue to send our military in silence. We have to know that the things that they're facing are the things that you faced when you served. I don't know whether or not that we're going to need to put boots on the ground in Syria. Quite frankly, it's above my pay grade. But what I know is that we can't, as an American people, not understand what our men and women are going through once we do send them. We need to know that the war that we send them into is worth it. And we need to understand that our people, our elected officials, our president, and our House and Senate are sending them to do a mission that can be accomplished and then to get out. We can't build nation states over there like we've been trying to do and then watch them kill the villages that we tried to build. Our military's not built for that.
What they're doing now is, as you well know and you see in the papers, is they're decapitating and they're burning people alive and drowning them just to get. I don't know why they're doing it, but that's pretty typical of. And when you come up as a soldier on the trail, you come into a village or a town. In the case of Syria, it would be a town, or well, it could still be a village, I guess. And you see the atrocities that they commit. And here, if an American soldier beats the hell out of or even kills a Pakistani because he's a pedophile and he's abusing children, and we're gonna hang him. Not literally, but we're going to punish him, kick him out of the military with a dishonorable discharge because he beat up a pedophile. As far as I'm concerned, that guy did the right thing. But unfortunately, if you look at these people that were fighting in both Vietnam and in the ISIS and or ISIL or whatever you want to call it, the atrocities they do, it's just horrendous. And I know, less than, of all the stories, of all the missions that soldiers go on, you have maybe 1/2 of 1%. So that's 1/4% of the, or one soldier screws up and does something terrible because he loses it or he's gone crazy or he's just mentally ill and slipped through the cracks. And he commits an atrocity, we're suddenly, the entire Army or Marines is, terrible, right? But we never look at what the enemy is doing. And if you're going to send a soldier to war, you gotta stand behind them and say, hey, get the mission done, kick ass, take names, put them in jail, and make sure they know that if they do it again, we're going to come back and stop on them. But what our politicians tend to do is, we're political, we can only do so much. I was against an invasion in Syria because it was a civil war taking place. ISIL hadn't spilled over into Iraq like they did. And my concern was in the article I wrote, because they only published so many words, the end of it, I said, hey, look, if you really want to do something, once you're in Iraq, you should have stayed in Iraq. Instead, what we did is we pulled out, and the vacuum got filled by ISIL. And they took our weapons.
Yeah, that's what happened. Well, Kerry, listen, we're going to have to get on with our meeting here. We've got another video to show. But listen, as I bid you farewell and as we give you a hand for what you're doing, I think that the rules of engagement has to be changed if we put boots on the ground. And I've submitted the notion that we should use the Beatles, the singing group The Beatles, for the context of our rules of engagement. And that is the song that says, if you say hello, I say goodbye. Boom, lights out. That's the only rules of engagement that we should be sending our people over there with.
Where is he? Yeah, am I going to see any of you down in Washington when I get there, or are you going to stay home? Or?
Well, I don't know. We're trying to organize a few things. We're trying to get some things organized through Limbeck. Haven't heard back from them. They haven't got much more time. But we're trying to get some people to get some buses and see if we can't get some people down there to welcome you in. Hopefully. Where you're at right now, people are asking where you're at right now. You're probably home right now, right?
Yeah, but I'm where I left off is in a place called Everett, Pennsylvania.
Everett, Pennsylvania.
Which is 140 miles from Washington, D.C. And yesterday, I actually went about 35 miles because most of it was downhill. I'm on the east side of the Appalachian Mountains, about to go up another one. And
you better be careful, you'll get a ticket for speeding.
Yeah, exactly. So what I was going to tell you is, it looks like Saturday morning, I'm going to be hitting Washington, or Saturday I'll be hitting Washington, D.C. I don't know if it'll be in the morning or afternoon. But we're going to, it's no big deal. It's a matter of, people, I understand they have a life and they have a job and they have obligations. But the most important thing is that you get on the phone and you call your, if you call any member of Congress, you can call them on the phone. But if you try to email them, they'll never get the message. You won't even be able to send it.
I can personally guarantee you that there's a lot of our folks who are doing those calls, and we are trying to orchestrate and organize, but we can't organize from up here, but we're trying to get the attention of people receiving you at the Vietnam War Memorial, and it's so perfect that that's where this trek that you're doing ends for the attention for those vets. So, Kerry, we're going to...
I invited Hannity to ride the last mile with me.
Is he going to do it?
No, I haven't heard from him. David Webb, you ever heard of him?
Yeah, David Webb, the black fellow. Yeah, he's
a big supporter of veterans, so if I can get him to ride with me on Saturday, that would be a treat.
Well, I will end with this. I know that it went up the chain, but I don't know that they're going to hear it, but Carly Arena has been invited to bike with you a mile and then to join you. But I haven't heard back. I know that it got to her handlers, but whether they can orchestrate it or not, I'm not encouraged that they can. But that doesn't mean she diminishes what you're doing. Kerry, I'm going to let you go. We're going to give you a round of applause. Folks, tell Kerry how you appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.